Welcome to the Improviding Life podcast, where we explore how life can be more livable. This is Lori Love, and we are back with another episode in our How Human Design Helps Me Human series. And this one I'm pretty excited to share because it is full of cheekiness and permission giving to myself to actually share thoughts and feelings that I have on the topic of human design. And really give permission to anyone else who might have this particular aspect in their design. So, I believe I've already mentioned in another episode, but if not, I'll do a brief recap that part of your human design, you'll have a profile. And so this would be a series of two numbers that looks like a fraction. The first number, and these numbers would be 1 through 6. The first number that you have with your chart is going to be essentially the energy of how you're experiencing life in the world, and then the second number is how others are going to be experiencing your energy. And so in my case, I have a 3-5 profile, and some of the human design based language for that would be the martyr for the third line, and then the heretic for the fifth line. There are a few people that I have studied with or enjoy their work in human design who also have other language for this. And then there's some people in human design who are purists and say, oh, you could never change the source material to have other names, blah, blah. I'm not on that camp because anything that's purist related, right, it just feels so white supremacy culture to me, and I just can't even know. So, but to the point, some other names for this, for the third line that I identify with myself would be like the experimenter, the scientist, the sort of magician, right? Trying out things, because the third line is about this energy of trial and error, figuring out what happens, really learning discernment through life because of the experiences we have. And the fifth line is this sharing out, storytelling, really conveying then the messages, teaching out what has been learned, and in my case, putting those energies together. So what I like to think of, and hence the title of this episode, Fuck Around and Find Out, is the 3-5 Anthem. So for anyone who's listening, or if you know or love any people with 3-5 profiles in your life, that saying, fuck around and find out, is absolutely the 3-5 Anthem. So let's just riff on this. When we first hear, right, the idea of fuck around and find out, the pause, what is the first thing that you think of? Often when I see and hear people talk about fuck around and find out, it's often in the sense of setting boundaries, right? Someone's showing their ass and you're like, okay, they're going to fuck around and find out, meaning they're at the point of pushing every button that can be pushed, or they're at sort of the end of their, you can only sort of give people enough space to be dickheads before there's going to be consequences, right? Essentially that fuck around and find out. And also though, when I think about being a 3-5 profile and having this energetic pulse and need to and purpose to have these explorations in life, right? I think of the three energies being like the bumper cars in life. We have to be sort of nudging into things, experiencing life in a, often people see it as a clumsy way, but it's really we need a high touch point, aspect of life. I need to be having adventures, engaging with things, feeling life, sensing life, having all of our senses going through life with us. And essentially that's the fucking around part, right? And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that, in British lingo, it's also have a fuck about, right? So you're just going around, you're playing, you're doing there's no real objective of oh, this has to be productive or perfection based. Really, it is just we're going to just see where life takes us, right? And for me as a 3-5, the more I'm allowing myself, and it's been challenging in this phase of life of being a work from home while stay at home full-time caregiver to a toddler, of actually having enough opportunities to have the newness of energy, to have things to fuck around with, right? Because so much of my day are things that don't have as much room to fuck around with. And yes, I'm someone who finds silly and play and a way to make so much of life be, from this place of play and wonder and connection. And also, if I'm still in the same house, in the same room, doing the same general task or activities for 99% of my life, I experience this in my body, my system, as this depletion of nutrition. Like, I don't feel nourished, I don't feel energized, because there's not enough light. Like, I'm not having these adventures or like experiences, just fresh energy coming in. Everything feels really stale in my system. And so then how that affects the sort of fifth line part of my experience, I feel like I don't then have anything to share out. I don't have moments to reflect on. I can feel then very bogged down and stuck in the mud, because the fifth energy is about, then if I'm sharing it out, it's sharing out to someone or something. Like, there's then the exchange. And if I'm always if I'm feeling like I'm having a lack of life adventures to experience, and then that also coincides with having fewer people to engage with, then essentially it feels like my energy inflows and outflows just aren't happening. And so a lot of the 3-5 profiles, like in our lived experience, get a lot of shame put at us, a lot of judgment, a lot of like, well, why can't you do things right? Or why would you try it that way? Right? And most often that's probably from people who aren't 3-5 profiles themselves, or are 3-5s and had the same sort of messages given towards them. So we can be very averse to having that energy, because, quote, right, the part of being an adult is to like have all your shit together and know all the things, right? And if we are in that space of going through someone else's motions, not only are we then obviously not going through our own motions, but we are like actively resisting and not leveraging the fact that we have that third line energy for a reason, and we can sustain more sort of bumps and nudges and, oh, let me look through this hole, or oh, let me climb through that tunnel, right? Like we can persist through more things than other people's energies can, because we have that third line energy. And then again, this is not being shared to bypass them, like, oh, you're going through a rough patch, your life sucks, like, you deserve it, or just get through it. No, not at all. But if we're not then able to access opportunities to have the choice and the say and the magic and the play and the exhilaration of experiencing things, that then, and this is for anyone with the third line and anywhere in your profile, not just for 3-5, then it's going to impact your quality of life. But then also, can you access that other line in your energy, whether that's a 1, 2, 4, whether it be a 3, 4, but yeah, so any of the other 6 numbers. So if you have a 3 line anywhere in your profile, anything I've been sharing then about that third line is resonant. And then anything I'm sharing about the fifth part, which now we'll transition to, which is, so the third line was the fuck around, and now we're going into the find out part, right? Part of the fifth line experience is then having this review process, which is where I continue to struggle with at times, because I just forget it's an option of, oh, yes, I had this experience, or, oh, I've been studying something, oh, I'm learning something, and now here comes the gift or the ability or the question of like having the discernment then of, well, what am I storytelling back out? What message, what's the through line, what's the takeaway that I want to be sharing? And the fifth line energy is here to essentially be, how can we be the spark notes or, the summary for those around us who don't then have the other corresponding life experiences or energy lines to have gone through the exact combination of lived experiences and studies and what have you to form that view or that opinion, right? And so the fifth line energy of like finding out, it's the first part of the process is us finding out because we're inquiring within ourselves. And then there's this discovery and finding out process where we're then externalizing that, right? We're finding out of like, oh, what's the takeaway here, gets shared out. And then it's like a collective we're finding out, right? So for anyone who is a 3-5, we're going through, let's say, a life experience, right? You're bumping into things. You feel the third line happening. When you're able to take the moment and have the fifth line part of it of, oh, what's really coming up for me? Why does this feel like it's happening or resonate or not resonating? Like what is the through line or the discernment part that I'm seeing? Then when that is shared, what then happens is, you're then reaffirming to yourself and your energy field, like, oh, I see myself. I'm like validating and acknowledging myself and how I function as a human. And then also giving permission to someone else who either has a third line, a fifth line, or both in their profile to be sort of calibrated to that for themselves. And also all of these aspects of sort of lifelong, being a lifelong learner and the lessons learned are being shared out to be in support of more people having access to being their fullest selves, to understand things in ways that they couldn't because they couldn't possibly have every type of lived experience themselves, right? We're essentially supporting a whole ecosystem of fuck around and find outness, right? And then obviously, because, I love me some nougaty nuance to chew on, there absolutely are going to be phases of life or just like people's individual choices, personality, what have you, where, the quality of the fucking around does matter if you're then wanting a certain find outness, right? So what I mean by that is, if someone with, that third line energy, if it's being expressed as like, no, I am going to fuck around, I'm going to go kick down my neighbor's mailbox just to see what happens, right? Or, like if they had a piece of my mail and didn't bring it over the same day, I'm going to go kick it around. Boom. So you go fuck around in that way, right? Like, I'm just going to try this out because I'm angry and I want to. Then the find outness might be like, oh, they have a doorbell camera installed, so now, like, the police are knocking on my door and there might be some issues there, right? And I just wanted to acknowledge, too, that it's like part of the practice of integrating your human design, of acknowledging that it's a system, seeing it within yourself, if anyone, and seeing, and observing other people's energies, right? Like, all of this and all of humanity exists with so many different layers and aspects, right? This is not to, like, love and light only ourselves out of, like, reality. We can absolutely have expressions and sort of feel these urges and inclinations with our energy to be more problematic, right, if we're not then actively choosing to be less problematic with how we are functioning. And so absolutely I can think back to times in my own life, and this was before I knew about human design to even have the access to the way, this sort of depth or nuance of having the self-reflection of it, where I absolutely was just sort of bumping around, like trying different options because there wasn't a very like clean, neat outcome that was shown to me. I didn't know there was another option. So I had to find my own way forward. And then because of sort of, perhaps some of the activities that I was, going through to try to find the way forward, I had already seen or experienced in life where those were like shamed or judged. So then the 5 part of that energy didn't ever really happen. I was like, well, I don't want to reflect on this because, I just had to get by. I was in survival mode, right? And so, I'm hoping that in sharing out this episode, there can both be space for anyone who's a 3-5 to like feel affirmed in this anthem of fuck around and find out gets to actually be something that is supportive and empowering and helpful, and also that it gives the space to sort of absorb back in, integrate, lovingly tend to those aspects of perhaps our lived experience and our stories that did have that shame or that fear or didn't have a clear way through, and we had to do all the extra effort of trying to figure it out. And that that there's more love and tenderness and grace that we can offer ourselves and others in this allowance of just the real, like, it's not even a duality, like the sort of multiplicity of the everythingness of how at any given moment where, if we're trying to, do the best we can, as cliche as that can sound, that ability is impacted by so many things that we're seldom given the space or encouragement to like name and to navigate. And so my hope is, with this sort of shorter like anthem episode, right, this like is it a rallying cry? I don't know. All of these cliches are coming through. Just how I know I've soundboarded out all my thoughts, and I'm at the point of it feeling complete with this. Share the other part back, tying into my being a mental projectorness. I've released all the thoughts I wanted to be released, but let's say everything is sharing out here. It's like, can there be more room, right, to be human? Because this whole series, the point is, human design can help us be more human. And so when you're in the show notes and you look, there should be an option of like send a text. You can send a message in that I'll receive and I can respond in the next episode. So if you have your human design chart and you're looking at it and you see your profile, and you want me to like share any thoughts on your profile line or answer any questions, like that again is an option. Being a mental projector, it's easier for me to guide energy once I'm invited in, right? Which is why this series is less of me teaching human design, right? Because that'd be a huge energy output for me that may not even be wanted by anyone, right? But sharing through the lens of my experience and then inviting some, the guests in and having them share their experience, right? It's to shift an awareness that the human design is a practice and a modality that exists. It can be something that can help you be your full ass self, and it can help with the inner parenting and the reparenting process. And also, it can help make life more livable as we're able to start to name, normalize, and navigate those aspects of ourselves which have otherwise, for any combination of reasons, not have been allowed to be part of that like full assness. So, I say all that to say, send in any questions or messages you have through the show notes with on the Buzzsprout page for the Providing Life podcast. And in doing so, I'll be able to respond to that. Also, so this recording will be up in June, right? So depending on when you're listening to it, I still have 2 spots available in July for Live More with Lori, which is my one-to-one Voxer-based, so a voice messaging app container for supporting you in your reparenting, your inner parent efforts, for learning and integrating your human design. And also, if you're having any other navigating life and you want it to be more livable ways, where then it's you and I working together for that month. So it's asynchronous, meaning like you don't have to be available for certain call times. We're able to be using the voice app to keep this dialogue going, and then doing that teaching and coaching and really like sharing out that like fuck around and find outness about my energy to help you start to feel like you have greater access to the pieces that you feel like might be just out of touch, like you have a feeling, a nudge, a calling, a yearning for something, and it's just not quite graspable, or is that a word? It's not quite reachable yet. My energy and my role really then comes in to help sort of reconfigure some of these things, these thoughts, these awarenesses, this energy, so that way different options become available, choices you actually want to become available. You have a different way to access an awareness of what's going on. You're able to see that other possibilities and paths exist, and then sharing out possible first steps, so that way it doesn't feel so daunting to start that motion and going towards being your full ass self and life being more livable. So, as always, have a razzle dazzle day, and if that's not accessible, you can put an F on front and have a frazzle dazzle day.